Fáiltear Nash Grí Shrahadó de Comhrá Le Tomás, I gcór le Eirgrid. Be mé sí le daoine cáiliúil ón Cumann Lú Clascail agus tá súlagam go minic sibh tainneas.
I remember saying to him, this is some trip, Sean Murray. This is unbelievable. He says, it's not a trip, Mugsy, it's a tour. And I was like, no, but you know what I mean? He says, no, I don't.
So proud there again, D&G, who're there again, D&G, Dalshin Cabana. Yeah, tis LNG anyway, Larry and Galvin anyway, that's the brand name anyway.
This season, the show is brought to you by Eirgrid. They're the proud sponsors of the Under-20 All-Ireland Football Championship. Not only is Eirgrid delivering a cleaner energy future for Ireland, they are invested in development of our most promising GAA players and the managers that help them to shine. Welcome back to another episode of Comhrá Le Tomás, and I'm delighted to say, in association with Eirgrid, we have Matty Forde from Wexford with us. I got to know Matty a long time ago on a trip to Australia. We've stayed in touch ever since. Delighted to say that Matty's joining us from the morning after of a wedding. So Matty, you have a fine fresh head in you, fair play to you. How are things with you? You're enjoying golf, you're enjoying the leisure, the lockdown isn't bothering you too much if you're going to weddings and enjoying yourself?
No, actually, the lads were slagging me at the wedding yesterday. This is actually the first, I'd say it's definitely the first wedding I've been at since my own wedding, which was literally just before lockdown. It was in February of 20, sorry. So it's literally the first time getting back out. So we made the best of it, all right. It was a great day, so it was. And it's nice to actually get back to just a bit of normality, which is, it's kind of nearly a first since all this madness, I suppose, has taken place. So look, it's nice to get back on the road.
I played golf with you outside, and we did a lot of things out in Australia, actually, a lot of things we shouldn't have been doing as well. But you were playing golf in the old head lately. There's nothing like it on this island, I don't think, for a golfing man.
To be honest, and a lot further afield than that, I've been trying to explain it to fellas since, and you can't. I don't think you can put it into words for anyone who likes or enjoys their golf, and who's been lucky enough to play there. And we probably might not get to play there again. But it's just unbelievable.
Did you cause fucking trouble down there?
No, we didn't. We were kind of not told in no uncertain terms, but I think it was kind of made clear to us in a nice way when the American tourists get back, they're not going to want the likes of us down there playing. We didn't dig up the place or anything. Absolutely. But look, at absolutely spectacular. And for anyone that enjoys their golf, boy, geez, if you get a chance to play there, that is some place to play, as you know yourself. And we were blessed to have a spectacular day in it as well. But it's just an amazing place.
I was, I don't know, I mentioned I was chatting to somebody there lately, and I said, Matty plays a pile of golf, yeah. And he says, Jesus Christ, Matty could have made it as a rugby player. What height are you? And tell me the connection with the rugby. What position number one were you? I guess that you're either I'd say a fullback, Matty.
No, I actually most of me rugby, that's very much in inverted commas. I played out half. So a good friend of mine was involved with Gorey Rugby Club. So they were playing. He ended up being captain of the thirds, which wouldn't have been the most glamorous position, shall we say, at the time. So he had to gather up a thirds rugby team. We had 14 footballers, most of them who had played for Wexford at one level or another, and all lads from around the locality, from three clubs: Kilanerin, Castletown. Colin Morris actually was my scrum half, and he was a serious rugby player as well, and definitely could have made it. But and we had one token, as we keep calling, we had one token Protestant playing prop, so we needed one fella just to make it realistic. So we won the Southeast Thirds Cup, and I was playing out half, and I actually really enjoyed it, and I really regret not being able to play more of it. But as you well remember, at the time when we would have been playing football, the National League obviously was played pre and after Christmas.
Yeah.
So you literally went from your club season straight into pre-season with a county, or maybe straight into the middle of the National League. So I never got a chance to play over the winter, but it's something I really regret not being able to play more of, and I absolutely loved it, and I'm a big rugby fan as well.
What level did you play at? Like, was it a kind of case? Was it junior B football level, or was it a higher level than that in terms of rugby?
No, most of it was at junior B. I remember playing up in Dublin one day, so it was J3, what it would have been called. So the top level, I suppose, or one of the higher levels of it's below junior rugby.
So like
J1,
dangerous, Matty.
It was raw enough. A fella hit me one day. He got sick of me kicking the ball one day to half the length of the field up in Malahide, and I was literally kicked the ball from my own line, and I was landing down in the far 22. And this fella, about 6'5" and about 20 stone, came straight through my chest with his shoulder And I swear to Jesus, he hit me in Malahide and I landed in Swords. He hit me that hard. But look, it was rough, but sure, I'll tell you, it was no different than playing football against the likes of you and some of them northern fellas. I don't think it was legal playing rugby, that was all.
Was there any moment in the rugby where you said, fuck, I have to reassess the situation here. I think I'm gonna fucking end in my party.
Right that second when that fella hit me, because he absolutely poisoned me. I had one leg on the ground and the other one was up around here somewhere, and he just came. It was like getting hit by a car. But no, look, it was actually very enjoyable. As I said, obviously, look, it's a tough enough game, but I do regret not being able to play more of it, and I really would have liked to have played more of it, but that's not going to happen at this stage, I don't think.
I'm not wrong. There's 3 counties in Ireland that have 4 in a row in football, and Wexford are one of them. Is Wexford, and there's a pile of dual stuff on in Wexford. When you were growing up, Matty, was it football or hurling? Was it in a dual club, and the dream was maybe to do both when you were younger?
I suppose when we were younger, we played a bit of everything. So I suppose that's where the golf would have came from as well, and the rugby. And we during the summer we played tennis. Like we literally played anything that was going. So my club was a dual club, but we were very definitely more football. We were senior football club where we were probably junior hurling at best. Now we won junior hurling, we won intermediate hurling, and I was playing on both of those teams and ended up playing senior. But we would never be regarded as a hurling club. So it was all football. I just wanted to play. I didn't care what it was at that stage. I just wanted to play. So whatever was going, and I played hurling with the club up till 2010. I had an operation, a fairly serious operation on my back, and at that stage, I kind of said to myself, well, I'm not going to be able to keep playing a game every week. I'm just not able to. So obviously, football was always going to win out. But like I played loads of hurling and really enjoyed it. And again, it's probably I could have played a bit more. I was in the senior hurling panel in Wexford for a while, but I just didn't think it was for me at the time. So, but football was always going to be number one.
I'm involved in a club here in management in Cork, in an intermediate club, and Cork is a huge county, and the way they have to plan everything in terms of hurling weekends and football weekends and all that. Do you think it? I think it does hurt Cork. Do you think it hurts Wexford? And I'm not saying it hurts it more in football, it hurts it more in hurling. Do you think it hurts Wexford? Like the days of the dual, does it hurt you more as a county to have more dual players, or hurling and football strong?
I think it has to. Look, if you look at the senior hurling team now, there's probably Wexford senior hurling, there's probably 5 or 6 fellas, 3 or 4 fellas in that who would walk on to the senior football team. When we were playing, around 2006, 7, 8, the likes of Brian Malone, Kieran Ling, Redmond Barry, definitely would have walked onto the senior hurling team. But in fairness to them, like we were going well at the time. Relatively speaking, the hurlers didn't play a match in Croke Park for 7 years in a row around that era. We were playing 3 and 4 games a year in it, and like we were competitive with anyone we were playing with. So the lads decided to stick with hurling. There's no doubt about it, and I've said this to anyone that would ask, or would whenever a conversation to come up, that like you look at the amount of guys in counties, the likes of the northern counties where there's really only football, or the Tipperary where it's predominantly hurling, or Kerry where it's predominantly football. It's very hard to get really good at one sport doing it all the time. If you're trying to split yourself in two and do it hurling 50% of the time, football 50% of the time, it's very hard to get to the top. And absolutely, it's. I'm not saying it hurt Wexford. All the lads will play both and love playing both, but I mean it's very hard to perfect something trying to do it half the time. Would be my opinion on it.
And then I think it can actually be done, but it takes such an effort. There's such amount of time goes into football, such amount of time goes into hurling. But then if the communication isn't there, and as well as people will say out in the open, they're still minding their own patch, like, aren't they, when it comes back down to it, like?
Of course they are. And look, we have the absolute same situation in our own club where 90% I'm coaching our senior football team, and 90% of the lads play both, and you have to accommodate them to want to play, and that's fine. And I played hurling myself, so I know the situation. But I mean, you absolutely want to look after your own patch. Selfishly, I would love to have them fellas 3 nights a week, not away playing hurling, or the potential of getting an injury sticking your hand up to catch a hurling ball or something like that. No, within reason, no one is going to pull on you in a football match with a hurl. So selfishly, you want them there, but look, they're the cards we were dealt, and you just have to get on with it. And it is very frustrating, but we've never known any different. So I'd love to be in the situation where I would go to train a club, preferably my own, that you have the lads all the time. But I think that little break away from it and that bit of freshness, or that bit of doing something else, means when they come back, I found that we're getting them in a good position where they're mad for road, and that's important too, because I think if not, the whole thing can get a bit stale.
Do you like the management? Jesus, I have a, I don't know, I have a low tolerance for people in general, Matty, and fucking patience runs short. And
Yeah.
I remember myself as a young fella, and I must have been a nightmare to handle when I was 17, 18, 19, because it was all crack. Club management is a fucking nightmare for trying to get it going. I can imagine now, and I know I have a similar situation with the dual stuff. But Jesus Christ, when you come from a background where everybody was in, the inter-county stuff must be easier. Commitment at club is fucking tough. Like, I don't know what it's like.
No, it's a massive challenge now, and I suppose young fellas now are different than we were. Like, we're not 70 or anything, but 20 years ago when we were, you're starting out on your inter-county journey. All we want to do was play football. Like, obviously there is the same distractions for young fellas now, but it's very hard. Like, I just find and our lads are a good bunch of lads to train. I have to say that the commitment, they're just not as committed. Everything. Any excuse to opt out or go for a night out in the grand. Look at, and I'm preaching to converted with you. We trained hard, but we were able to have a bit of crack as well. And I've been trying to get that across to lads. Look, you can do both. I don't want you to train 7 days a week. You don't need to do that. But when we are training, I just want you to train. And it is like you would be pulling your hair out, and I am, because look, we trained and played at a decent level, and I'm trying to get fellas to buy into that. And look, it's hard because they don't understand it, and that's fine. But like, playing was a lot easier. You turned up, you trained, you went home. Like, now there's different stuff you have to deal with. Like, as I said, is just as baffling. But look, I suppose they're the times, and I suppose I presume everyone's dealing with the same kind of stuff.
Yeah. Do you like are you hands on with the coaching, or do you enjoy that part of it? Is it something that I know you've been involved in different Wexford teams down the years, but Matty Forde would be the name, the all-star that Wexford have. Is it something that you see yourself continuing on, or is it something that you're not too sure about? Are you definite you want to go down that road with it, like?
No, I think I do, yeah. And like, to be honest, 99% of it's going to be with my own club. I've done bits of coaching with other teams and even across the border into Wicklow and that, but exactly what you started off this conversation about was really frustrating. And look, I've kind of resigned myself to the fact, if I'm going to be frustrated, at least I'm going to be frustrated with my own fellas. Because my club has been very good to me for the duration of my career, and it's just about giving something back to them. Look, there might be a time comes when I go elsewhere and do a bit of coaching. At the moment, I'm more than happy doing it with my own club. I would much prefer to be playing, and I think anybody that's played will tell you that, and yourself. But look, it's the next best thing, and like, I suppose lockdown prove it. If we're not doing that, what the name of Jesus are we going to do? It's what we kind of know best, and like very much hands on. Sorry, to answer your question, I wouldn't be like being involved with a team as a manager. I want to coach, and I want to be out in the middle of fellas and that kind of thing. And that's, maybe I'm shy at it, I don't know, but that's what I enjoy the most anyway. I know that.
Are you enjoying football at the moment? I know it went through a few years where people were freaking complaining. Do you like modern day football?
I think it's going back in the right direction. Is it enjoyable? Like, you have a certain amount of games that are absolutely competitive. Obviously, the Ulster Championship's competitive. Cork, Kerry are competitive. Leinster outside Dublin is competitive. It's decent to watch. Absolutely, it's far better than the defensive stuff we were watching 5, 6, 8 years ago. Most teams are trying to have a cut now, which absolutely is enjoyable. But unfortunately, there's just inevitability about the whole thing. Like, unfortunately, we know what the end game is going to be 9 times out of 10. You're still seeing the hammers handed out between the Division 1 and Division 4 teams. And I'd just like to get me Wexford plug in there that we didn't get one yesterday off these lads that have won 6 in a row. But look, I think it's definitely an improvement on where it was 4 or 5 years ago. Absolutely, yeah.
Would you like to be playing, like, I remember now, the cornerbacks in my day, Mark would be inside me, Tom Sullivan would be inside me, and I'd get a rollicking at half time. For fuck's sake, will you stay back? There's fucking acres in front of you, like. Would you like to be playing? I've no doubt, Matty, you'd survive in the fucking claustrophobic world of the modern day football. Would you like it? Do you think you'd enjoy it as much as you did back in the day?
No, I don't think so. I was just saying, now, if I ever get reincarnated as a footballer, I'm going to play cornerback, because you'll have 13 lads standing in front of you, and I hate cornerbacks, and I mean that in the best possible way. But like, that's where you want to play now. Like, there's more, you have more cover there. Jesus Christ, there's fellas coming from all over the place. But I to be honest, I wouldn't really like to be playing now, and I've said that for a few years. it is a little bit better now than it was. I wouldn't mind playing that Kerry forward line now or the Dublin forward line, to be honest with you. But in general, no, I wouldn't. And look, to put it into context, I suppose playing with Wexford now is a tough gig, and I have great admiration for the fellas. They're there now. There's 2 of our own club lads in there that were playing yesterday, and the rewards aren't going to be massive. And I've great respect for all the Wexfords, the Sligos, the Carlos, the Waterfords, any of the lads that's going out and training 4 and 5 nights a week. I have huge admiration for what they're doing now. Like, realistically, we were thereabouts during my own playing days where we had realistic chance of winning Leinster and should have. But I don't see, I can't see that there now, unfortunately, for the Wexfords of this world. So I think it's a tough gig now, in fairness, for a lot of them. And I was talking to a friend of mine here from Laois yesterday at the wedding. He said, the amount of good footballers in Laois who've kind of stepped away and just, they don't see the point in it. That's not nice to see either.
I was just going to ask you.
Unfortunately, it's realistic.
I was going to ask you, do you reckon, and I come from a county where success was kind of expected, and we were lucky that we had good teams, blah, 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 and people would often say to me, you can't see it from the perspective of a weaker county. Do you reckon a lot of weaker counties that don't have their strongest teams out, and all the reason is, Jesus Christ, why bother? How can you even go about sorting that problem out?
I'll tell you, if you get the answer to that, fair play to you, because I don't think there is an answer to it. And absolutely, I believe that most of the so-called weaker counties, the likes of Division 3 and 4 teams, definitely in Division 4, possibly don't have their strongest team out. I will say in Wexford at the moment, anybody that's available of the best 25, 30 footballers in Wexford probably are playing. But it's a tough challenge, and you can completely understand fellas not wanting to commit to that. There has to be some bit of light at the end of the tunnel. And definitely the likes of the Kerrys and the Dublins, I think, would probably find it hard to see that. I remember Pat Spillane saying something years ago that there's 15 footballers in every county to compete with 15 in another county. Yeah. But I'm not sure. You need buy-in, you need the backing, you need a bit of financial support. It's the life of a Wexford footballer, or a Carlow footballer, or a Sligo footballer, I'd say, is fairly tough at the moment. And just as regards expenses and getting looked after, and then having nothing at the end of it, nothing tangible at the end of it, definitely doesn't make it any easier.
I was thinking there, when I went in with Kerry, and it was freaking back in the day, in the 90s, when we went, and you look at a club team preparing now in terms of the backroom team, in terms of what would be available to them at half times. I'm thinking small things now, little boxes of food and fruit and water and stretching materials and all this kind of stuff available at club level. Jesus, at the start of the inter-county career. And it was huge for us because it was a step above. Imagine what club was like back then. You walk into an inter-county. When you walked into the inter-county dressing room with Wexford, what age were you? What was it like? Was it a big deal for you? And was it a step up at the time? But you look back now and you say, Jesus Christ, that was rough.
Yeah, look, it definitely was. So I was just out in minor, so I was 19, and I'd played a year or maybe 2 years with the under-21s. But it was actually a Kerry man who brought me into my first Wexford panel, was JJ Barrett.
Jesus, yeah, great character.
Great fella, absolute great fella. And my introduction was, my brother Pat was on the panel. It was his first year, I think. And he rings me. He got off the phone to JJ, and he says, JJ, I was only 19. All I was worried about was playing for Kilanerin, going for a few pints, and going after women. Literally, that was all. Playing football for Wexford. I wanted it, but it wasn't really on my radar at that stage. I was about 11.
It could have distracted the other stuff,
Absolutely, that getting in the way. So Pat got a call off JJ. He said, and she only told the story at my wedding a year and a half ago. He says, Pat says to me, JJ wants you to come in for a training game on Saturday, and we're playing Tipperary in Thurles in the league on Sunday. And my answer to him apparently was a few expletives, as in, what the fuck, you just want me to come in here? I presume he was taking the piss, because it wouldn't have been unlike him. So I went in anyway. My first day tagging out for Wexford, I was the sub goalkeeper. I got through number 16 jersey over in the corner, and I looked at it as the sub goalkeeper jersey. What the fuck is this about? But I was in that dressing room. Scott Dorn, who unfortunately is no longer with us, John Harrington, no longer with us. Guys like that in there who you were literally looking up to, because John Harrington was a monster of a man. I was going, geez, I'm in the wrong dressing room here. I think the minor match was on earlier or something like that. But look, I found my feet fairly quick. But like, to go back to answer your original question, it was fairly bog standard. Like, we used to train in the same ground as the hurlers in Patrick's Park and in Escorty. Before they have the luxurious surrounds now of our centre of excellence, which is top class in fairness. But like, we used to go into a little hut for tea and biscuits after training. The hurlers are going to Murphy Flood for steak dinner, and that's no word of a lie. So, but like, this coming from where we were training with the club, and we had a good club team. I was lucky to win a good few championships. We were training seriously with the club, but this was a little bit of a step up. But it actually wasn't major at the time. But getting the tea and biscuits after training, now you seem like you're a Premiership soccer player. So, you know, and things graduated a bit from that, thankfully. But yeah, it was a bit of an eye opener.
And I know you had fierce success and very, very unlucky to get a Leinster, not to win a Leinster. When did you think, whoa, or when was it over a period of time? Well, obviously, it wasn't one decision or one. Was it a manager in? Was it like you always had? You worked. I never knew that Tommy Carr was involved below. Paul Beelan, you played under Paul Beelan, like the managers you played under. Was there anything that said, whoa, there was a change? Was it Jason Ryan or what was it?
Well, the first, actually, JJ would have been the one who kind of started something in motion. Now, it didn't really click into gear. That was 99. It didn't really click into gear till about 04 when Pat Rowe came. And as one of JJ's great sayings was Pat Rowe had a bit of bejesus about him, and he really started putting a bit of belief. But like, there was a core of lads there, had been around a while, kind of myself, Morris, Red Barry, David Murphy, Philip Wallace, Paddy Colfer, Eric Bradley, 5 or 6 lads, and we kind of subconsciously said, look, we're sick of getting beaten the whole time, and we had to step it up, and thankfully we did. Now look, there was very little at the end of it, but where we were coming from, like, arguably we were at a lower ebb than Wexford in 99. Wexford are at the moment where we were stuck in Division 4. We were winning an odd game, had not winning a championship match every 5 years, I'd say. And eventually, kind of, lads, we had enough lads, enough good players that just got sick of it. And we didn't sit down and have a meeting about it. It kind of happened through a lot of lads just working really, really hard. But Pat Rowe definitely would have been the start. Now, in fairness, the likes of Micheál Furlong and Ger Halligan and like genuine, really good Wexford people were there with JJ, and they carried it on. And Tommy Carr came in with them, and Dom Toomey came in with them. But Tommy Carr was only with us like for about 6 months, and I would love to have had him for a period of time. I thought he was excellent, and that would have been the start where we started to see a more professional attitude from the top. And as you know yourself, that filters down.
But if you if you knuckled down and you got serious about your training, the Leinster Championship that time was still, Dublin weren't what they are now. The Leinster Championship, Kildare were going well, Laois possibly. It was still, you could cause an upset, and you, like, Jesus Christ, you had a few great years, didn't you?
Sure, look, at Leinster that time was wide open, and sure, like, Westmeath won their Leinster, Laois won, Meath won, like, Offaly were really strong at the time, and like, we the only team we couldn't beat, and we kept stumbling on Dublin. Like, we lost, I think it was 4 championship matches in 6 years to Dublin by 2 points or less. And like, it probably, if we'd have gotten over Dublin once, we were going to win Leinster. That was like, that's what we would have felt. And we just couldn't get over them. We had a massive mental block with Dublin. We genuinely believe we could beat them, but we never did. And like, people say, oh, look, you're unlucky and you're this. If you don't beat him, you don't beat him, as you know yourself. And you know, there's no being unlucky. You no one hands you, and you have to earn it. And look, we just weren't good enough at the time. And it's, looking back, it's a massive pity, because we're so far away from winning Leinster now. It's like, you know, back in the late 80s, early 90s all over again.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see anything like Kerry seemed to be dominating down in Munster. I know Tipperary won, but that was a complete curveball in the situation that you had. Yeah. You have Dublin dominating above in Leinster, and I do think that they're going to do something about the provincials, but I don't know what format it will take. It's hard. I don't think you'll please everybody anyway, Matty. What was your, in terms of football, what do you think was your best year of football? Was it 04?
My own, yeah, look, at personally, absolutely. Like, I would have played really well in 08. I was a bit maturer. I was physically bigger and all that. But like, as regards football and scoring, which I suppose primarily was my job, it was a no-brainer. I missed the first game in 04. I was best man at my brother's wedding. I missed the Armagh game up in Crossmaglen, and I missed that. So I played the next the other 6 games, and I think I scored 836 in the 6 leagues games, and then I think it was 334 in the championship. That was the year I took your footballer of the year. I took your car, by the way, as you well know. So like I think it was 10 games I think I played, and I scored 1170 in the 10 games, and I'd say 90% of it was in play. Like, and like every year is not like that, as you well know. So I personally, I'd say by a long way, that was my best season. All right.
Nobody wanted to fucking mark you. I remember that. You got footballer. There was 2 footballers of the year, and you got there was a car going for one, so everybody be fucking looking. Oh, you have a good chance there. You have a good chance there, and Matty got the car, and I was saying, oh, for fuck's sake, even if they could give us half a car, what did you do with the car, Matty? Did you keep the fucking car? What did you do with it?
I didn't keep the car. I sold it. The car went straight back to the sale garage and escorted it fair, and I got a decent few pound for it. But look at the lads in my brother's top of the list was lads in Kilanerin. Keep remind me, if there hadn't been you and Gooch on that short list of 5, we all fucking know who would have been footballer of the year.
Not at all. What was I going to say? Was it something when you look back? Would you regret the fact that you didn't? Like, you saw what Westmeath achieved, you saw what Laois achieved. Louth possibly should have achieved it. And was it something that you look back and now and say, fucking hell? Like, because I always do it. I always do it with we had fierce success, like, but I'd be lying if I said that we didn't get over the line with Tyrone. That kind of mental block, as you were on about, like, yeah. Would that still craw you, like?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and it's strange. I don't know whether it's an Irish thing or it's a GA thing or what it is. Like, even still, I played in 9 senior football county finals with the club, and it's the ones I lost.
Yeah. I
still think about and talk about more than the ones you actually won, you know, and we should be bloody grateful for what we did win.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. Like, it is the biggest regret. I remember something Pat Rose said to us, and it stuck in my head. We went to play Dublin in 2005, and we actually went to Kerry the week before, and we played you in a challenge game in Kilanerin. And actually, it was quite competitive. Kerry beat us in the end. I had the pleasure of Tom Sullivan for half a match, and then Aidan O'Mahony after that. And we drove down, however, about 17 hours on a bus. He ran the shite of us on the Friday night, and then we were to play Kerry on the Saturday morning. Now, look, it was really competitive, but I remember him saying, we went to play Dublin the following week and they beat us by 2 points, and it was sickening. Like, I'll never forget it. And he said to us early that year, we lads, you will sit on a high stool at the end of your career, and if you don't have a Leinster medal, you will always regret it. Because in fairness, he knew we were good enough to win one, and we probably knew we were good enough to win one, but we don't. But it's the biggest regret I have, absolutely. Were we going to win All Ireland at the time? I don't think so. If we had beaten Tyrone in 08 and we played that Kerry team, it could have got very messy for us. We were a decent team, but we weren't good enough to beat that Kerry team, your Kerry team. But we were good enough to win Leinster and probably a couple of them. So it does still bother me. You try and say no, it doesn't, but it absolutely does.
Yeah, it's a tough one because it's hard to explain then to people outside the bubble. Had you good times that time? Like, when you had that success with what did Jason Ryan seemed to get the most out of you? What did the managers, like, what did they bring? Was it that they brought him more professional, or was he good one-on-one, or was it that the whole group, was it just there was a good feeling around Wexford football at the time?
Yeah, well, Pat Rowe in 04 and 05, just it's very hard. It would have been a more professional approach. Now, Jason Ryan brought that to a whole new level again, literally a whole new level. But Pat Rowe would have been the first who really, we really bought into it, and he brought a bit more, I suppose, as JJ would have said, a bit more bejesus to the whole thing, where he kind of got us believing that we could, like we were good enough to, we should have won. But Ryan brought it to a whole new level. Jesus Christ, it was everything. He's like he actually says now, and it's quite funny, he didn't meet us. Like, Jason, when he took over Wexford, I think, was only 31, so he's only 3 or 4 years older than me. So he wouldn't meet us all together at the start. He met us individually because he said he was too intimidated, which I found very funny. But he was so good both on the field, off the field, one-on-one. Like, I said to loads of people, you literally be getting video stuff or a message at 4 o'clock in the morning. Like, you'd be thinking, does this fucker ever go to sleep? Like, and lads obviously respond to that because they said, look, if he's putting the effort, as I said, it comes from the top down. If he's putting in this sort of effort, you kind of have to reciprocate that. But we knew fairly quick this fella knew what he was on about. And, it was just nice then to be in an environment where you felt like you were going really, really going the right direction.
And you say, in comparison to can you compare the training that you were doing at the very start? Like, the commitment now that the Wexford footballers and any team, I would say that the commitment is the same, the time is the same, everything is the same. Was that was it? And I'm not trying to be disrespectful. Was that always the case with Wexford in
No,
terms of
absolutely
numbers
not.
and
So
commitment?
no, so like the first couple of years I played, and like I said, the first year I was there, JJ was there, and the physical training was a 6-lap run of the pitch and 6 sets of shuttle runs carrying bricks. Now it was tough going,
How heavy
but
were the
I'd say
bricks?
there wasn't a lot of science behind it. If I'm being realistic and it was great crack, and it kind of kick started the thing into motion. But then, like I said, Jason just brought a whole new level of like he's a background in sports science and stuff like that, and psychology and everything, and all those things added together. And like we knew nothing about him. He had won a senior championship. He'd come in and won a senior championship with Clongean. He only joined him halfway during the year. They were more or less out of championship, and he ended up winning it. And I would have and still am would be very friendly with Paddy Colfer, and he was singing this fella's praises, like as regards his organisation, everything else, but like still a complete unknown at inter-county level. But he was fantastic, like and he got a great tune of us, and I think he enjoyed it as well. He certainly enjoyed his time there. But the difference in '99 to '08 was literally like there and there. It was chalk and cheese, literally. But like that's the way it's gone, and I absolutely agree with you. I don't think fellas are spending much more time at, but like there's far more science. Like we never lifted a weight till 2008. So like my first 7-8 years playing with Wexford, I was 11.5 stone. In the Leinster final in '08, I was 14.5 stone. So like there's a
You're
massive
tall.
difference.
What are you? 6'4", 5"?
No, 6'2", but just on the point of 6'3". But like obviously I started at 19, but like I grew into myself, but doing the weights, and just like anyone obviously that's done it, and everyone that's playing football now, it just gives you so much more confidence, both going into tackles and winning. It's just everything, where you can hand off fellas or hold fellas off, whatever. Like looking back now, that's one of my biggest regrets, that we weren't getting proper S&C at the start of my time, and all of our time. No one knew any different in Wexford, or like I think I could have been a good bit better than I actually was.
That group of players, Matty, had you good crack? Were you tight? Like you socialise well? I know you wouldn't be into that crack now, but
No,
you,
no.
you possibly did enjoy yourselves when you got the chance. When you were that successful, did you go on any training holidays? Did you go abroad? Did you have holidays or?
Yeah. Look, I would have went out very rarely with the lads, as you know. I'd be
I know that, Matty.
a shy social character. No, we had, and I look at everyone says this. No, we were very tight. We were very tight. Like they're a great crew of lads, and we'd meet up now not often enough because lads are married and kids and all the rest of it now. And I said, even like unfortunately Scott Dorn and John Harrington are no longer with us, and these lads are only a few years older than us. But no, they're a great crew of lads, and I think like, as you well know yourself, you need that. You can't go anywhere without it. It's not the be all and end all, but it definitely helps. And now look, in fairness, we were on a couple of training camps in Spain. We were in Thailand a couple of times. We're on various different holidays, and like all that, I think lads buy into that, and it definitely helps. You don't get to know fellas properly training. You absolutely need nights out, and you find out the real character no more than ourselves. You'd have opinions of fellas off the field that you see on the field, but you really only get to know a fellow when you can sit down and actually have a chat to him.
Somehow,
Whether that's good or bad.
somehow I think that trip to Thailand, you were lucky men. There was no Snapchat or fucking Twitter out there that time.
Literally, I only said it to the wedding I was at last night, and the former Armagh footballer Johnny Hanratty was at. He was just saying, if there was, we'd all be in jail, and you know that better than I do. And I look at it, it was great, and it was a lot simpler. There was none of that nonsense, and there was no need to be. But look, it was nicer. Like even the All-Star trip or going to Australia to play the international rules, like I would have never ever seen that on the radar. And like to do stuff like that, and to get to know lads from other counties, Joe, it was just, for me, it was great, because someone from Wexford going to play with Ireland, like I would have been very intimidated the first time I went to Irish trials. I just said, like, I'm out of my league here, and I probably was the first time I went, but in '04, certainly coming off the year that I had and going into a dressing room with yourselves and the Tyrone fellas and all, I said, look, I can actually hold my own here, and just to meet other fellas and see, look at the very same as us, these lads like having a bit of crack too, and but
the All-Star was huge, Matty, and people say, oh, we don't pay much. I know for a fact that Kerry footballers really fucking think an All-Star is a huge deal. Like, so it was a massive deal for you, like, to have the All-Star in 04, wasn't it?
Yeah, look, absolutely, of course it was. And I've always said I never got much satisfaction of playing well in a game. You get none of it. I wanted to win, and I wanted to win for the team because, and look, at the All-Star and the Footballer of the Year was great. I would gladly hand them back for a Leinster final. I didn't win a Leinster final, but I'm delighted to have won an All-Star. Of course you are. I think anyone that says they're not, I think would be spoofing. To be the only Wexford footballer to have one is a massive thing. Look, it is for me anyway. People still mention it to me, and it's 17 years ago at this stage. So some people must put some heat in it anyway. Look, I'm still delighted to have it and very, very proud of it.
You mentioned the Aussie Rules trip 2005, and I don't know, I say, look, you're unlucky enough to be on the same trip. But I'll just ask you, who was the worst Aussie Rules player from an Irish side, and why was it Gooch?
I was just going to say, I'm going to have to say Gooch because you've dogged him ever since 2005. The poor fella, he's not easily upset anyway, as far as I know, and he won't mind. But look at
water off a duck's back to that fella. Water off a duck's back.
Absolutely. Look at there's, and we'll regale him someday. There's a couple of great stories when that trip, as you well know, and the All-Star trip with Gooch. What an absolute character, and again, it's the thing of people see Gooch on the field and he's X, Y, and Z on the field. He's unbelievable. But behind every footballer, there's a character as well. And by jizz, he certainly is one of them.
But isn't it unreal, Matty? Like, okay, you have the Gooch, who was a top footballer in the country for I don't know how many years. And he had the balance, like. It wasn't as if he knew how to take his football serious. He knew when to train. He knew when to put the head down. He wasn't doing any more or less than any other player. But he had a balance. It doesn't mean you have to go nuts. But the balance was there. I don't know as the balance as much nowadays, to be fair.
It doesn't seem that way. And like, you have to have it. Like, I relate it to like eating or drinking. If you really enjoy steak, if you eat steak 7 days a week, you won't be long getting sick of it. You have to have a bit of both. And that's what I was saying. Like, we enjoy both. You train hard, but you have to have that bit of downtime and get away from it, whether it be playing golf or whatever, something completely different, just something that'll take your mind off it, because doing anything all the time, I think, will eventually drive you mad. And it just, like, to be honest, it looks like a few of the Dublin players who have recently stepped away, that seems to be the biggest issue, where it's just literally, it's not a physical thing. I think it's a mental thing. And that's as big a challenge as absolutely anything going forward for anybody playing football or hurling at the top level.
Yeah, I think the COVID as well, like, life is there to be enjoyed as well, like, and it's not. Everybody said they are enjoying it, and I've no doubt that they are. Even counties that are unsuccessful, or that don't have a chance maybe of winning in All-Ireland, but still, there is a balance. Like, when I see young fellas now and they're raring to go on a flight, raring to go to Spain, raring to go to the Canaries, whatever it is, and have a bit of fun and a bit of life again, like. And sometimes I don't know, have we got the balance wrong? Do you know, going back to I was lucky enough, I got on lots of trips with freaking teams down the years. That 2005 trip to Australia was one of the best. I think I had a freaking hatred of getting on the plane because the Tyrone fellas were on it. 2005 thereafter, beating us for the second time. I didn't know them. I didn't want to know them. And then you got onto the plane and you were out, and then we had a few beers the first night, and you get to know them. I don't know, were the Irish GAA unlucky that we got on so well, the whole group, because we seemed to enjoy ourselves, Matty, a lot more than we actually fucking played football. Poor old Pete McGrath must have been saying at some stage, Jesus Christ, I picked the wrong fucking group here altogether.
Well, he must have thought, he definitely didn't think he brought the 30 fellas he had in Ireland the previous year anyway. He must have thought he had 30 imposters. But
everybody was fucking praying and doing their best to get on the plane, and once they were on the plane,
it was kind of game over, to be fair. Look at it, as I was saying earlier on, I think like behind every footballer there's a character and there's a person, and it's just nice. And I would have had absolutely a massive inferiority complex to the Kerry lads, that literally everyone I was playing with when I went to Ireland trials first, because I said, like, I'm from Wexford, these fellas don't rate us, they don't respect us, they don't give a shite about us, they don't think we're any use, this kind of thing. But I said, like, you soon kind of realise, first of all, I can compete here, I can hold my own, and second of all, these fellas are no different than us. Like, I remember vividly coming back from the All-Star trip in 2004, which would have been my first trip, apart from a couple of ones with Leinster, where we were lucky enough to play at one final in Paris against Ulster, I think it was. But it was my first trip away, where it was actually kind of quite social, as well as playing a bit of football. And I said, Jesus Christ, them Kerry boys, right? You see them on telly, they're serious, they're winning All Ireland every second year. I remember vividly saying that them are mad bastards. And the one fella that stuck in my head was Kirby. Kirby is mental, right? But like, I mean, in the best possible way. And like that's across the board with any of the fellas, including all the lads on the 05 trip, obviously.
And William Kirby was one of the best trainers you'd ever see. Jesus Christ, up the front of the runs constantly. He was a hard man, a genuinely hard man, but unbelievable fun then off it. Like,
yes,
you know what I
absolutely
enjoyed about the Aussie rules, and I'll ask you about the actual game in a second. But Pete obviously took it very seriously, and I'm not saying we didn't take it seriously. We trained, and we trained when we needed to train. We took the game serious. But that game, did you find it hard, Matt? Like, in terms, what would you say genuinely now? Is it a fucking game you'd say you'd need to be training 3, 4, 5 weeks solidly, twice a week on it, going through it? When you think of the analysis that goes into teams now, you know, the same preparation possibly wasn't there. It's impossible to have it there. You can't have it there in the time frame.
you can't.
Teams coming together. It's a tough gig for a manager, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's a bit kind of, I said this to someone actually only lately, it's a bit like the international rugby manager now, where you only get the players for a very small window, maybe before the Six Nations, or at the moment it's the summer series to start, and might have them for 5-6 days. And that's, I know we were going to Dublin. You probably wouldn't have been there because you were in All Ireland semi-final, final most years, where you couldn't get there. You couldn't get the training. So like, we were going to Dublin for maybe a Friday and maybe stay overnight and train on Saturday, doing 2 sessions a week. But you are really doing 2 sessions a week. Like, you can't do 2 full sessions in the space of 12 hours with each other. And like, looking back in Australia, sure, what we done was kind of a bit mental, to be fair. We went out on, maybe got there on a Friday, Saturday. The first test was the following Friday. Like, we trained maybe 5 days in a row.
Yeah.
You know, coming up to it. Like, if you were here in the heat, in the savage heat, if you were preparing for a Leinster, Munster final and All Ireland semi-final, you're not going to train 5 days in a row. Yeah. We kind of had to do it because we're trying to squeeze in what you were saying is get the preparation done. But I mean, come that first test, we were absolutely, looking back, we were out on our feet. What we were doing was crazy stuff. Like,
I remember when if you look back on YouTube and you Google in Chris Johnson and Aussie rules, and Jesus Christ, it was like, I don't know, it was like a man going bananas. It was swinging left, right, and Philip Jordan got caught in the middle of it. I was just wondering, because I was sitting on the bench beside Gooch, who was fucking talking to Dr. Conn at the time about how he was concussed. Where were you when Chris Johnson went sledging?
I was on the end of it. So if you look back, I was one of the 3. It was myself. People are saying to me, what were you running in for? I went in to see was McGuigan okay. I was doing fuck all to be Chris Johnson.
I fucking have left McGuigan alone.
I went in stupidly, natural reaction, ran in to see he was okay, and just bang. And I was out cold as well. And when I remember looking back at it, Anthony Lynch, he got it as well. So there was 3 of us on the ground at one stage, and about 4 lads climbing on his back trying to calm him down. He was like, he went mental. But I regret I wasn't beside the Gooch talking to Dr. Conn, to be honest.
I think in between when Chris Johnson hit his first belt and his last belt, Gooch got concussed somewhere, even though he was sitting beside me on the bench. No, I didn't touch him, but he got concussed in between them.
I'd say it was Dr. Conn hit him.
No, if there was ever a man that enjoyed a trip, it was Dr. Conn enjoyed that trip.
Well, you're talking about characters and stuff. Now, there's one of the great characters of GA. I was down in Cork on my stag in November of 19, and luckily got to know the doc that time, and I've kept in contact with him, and I know he's a great friend of yours, and you of him. So I rang him and I said, look, I'm down in Cork on such and such night. Will you call in and meet me for half an hour? He said, I certainly will. He came in on a Saturday morning, but I didn't realise, I think it was Patrick Horgan's wedding he'd been at the day before. And you know, the doc is a social man, as you well know. So I said to him, right, I'm in juries in Cork City. First of all, he went to the wrong juries. So when eventually he got to us, he sat down and I was chatting to him, and I told a few of the lads, all the lads on the stag obviously were GA people and my own club fellas or whatever, and a few of the Wexford lads. And I said, the doc is coming in, like, he was wanting to say hello to him. He sat down, he entertained us for about 3 hours. Hanging, he was, the poor devil. Yeah. He came in, well, the lads are still talking about it, in fairness. And
he's one of the...
that's what you're talking about, in characters in the GA, like, and probably never hurled or kicked the ball in his life, but everyone knows Dr. Conn.
He's a legend. He's an absolute legend. Well, I know I've held you long enough, Matty. What's the future hold? Are you happy enough coaching with the club at home? Any freaking ambition to go further?
No. Like I've been involved, as you said earlier on, with a couple of Wexford teams. I would find it very hard to get involved with another county team as regards another team in Wexford. Involved with a county minor team or a county under 21. I just think, and it's a different conversation, and you need to keep me here for a couple of days to get to the bottom of it. But we don't put as much into football as we do in hurling, and they might disagree with that, and they don't. And it's very frustrating. Like I was involved with a minor team a couple of years ago. I think there's a lot of lads actually playing now. There's probably 4 or 5 of them played yesterday, which is nice to see them coming through. But like the way they were treated was nothing short of disgraceful. They were like second class citizens, and that was me finished. Now I know when Paul took the Wexford job 2 years ago, I went in with him reluctantly, and I pulled out of that on my own accord. I was actually driving a government minister at the time, and my hours it was just ridiculous. Yeah. And I know Paul obviously since left as well, but I kind of half regretting going in with him from the point of view is I said I'd never go back, and at this stage I definitely never will. I'm happy enough doing a bit with my own club, and if the right opportunity came up maybe with another club, I would do something, but I'm more than happy working away with my own lads. I have a couple of 3 or 4 nephews playing, and a couple more on the way up we're probably going to play, and just working away with them and lads I would have played with, and your lads live beside you and friends and neighbours. I'm happy enough working away with them, and I think it's putting something back into the club who would have done an awful lot for me as well. So I'm more than happy with that at the moment. But county stuff is not on the radar, and I don't think it will be.
Is straightforward. Matty, I've taken up enough of your time. You're at a wedding. Day 2 is on the way. I've no doubt that you'll be central to the whole day. I really want to thank you. You've been one of my all-time favourite players outside of it. Then the fact that I've met you socially and get on very well with you actually drives it even further. So I'm delighted to have you on, boy. Obviously, sponsors Eirgrid, we're delighted as well to have Matty on board. So thanks a million, Matty, and we'll catch you soon for a game of golf somewhere. And I hope you enjoy the day.
No, look, I really enjoyed the chat, Tomás, and as we were saying earlier, like just getting to know the lads from different places and different counties is one of the, like, there's lots of tough times playing football for Wexford and lots of hardship and tough training and pre-seasons and training in the muck and the slop. But one of the big takeaways from my time playing football is getting to know fellas from other counties, and your good self is very much at the top of the list. And look, having a bit of a chat today was a pleasure, and I was never not going to come on, and I'll absolutely take you up on that game of golf. And if you can get us out in Old Head there, I'll be fucking straight back down as well. I'll tell you that, no problem.
We'll have to get on to Danny Brazil down the Old Head.
you have a lot more contacts than I have, so you start talking to Danny Brazil then, if that's what it takes.
Matty, we will do it, by all the best, and thanks a million. Thanks again to our sponsor Eirgrid, proud supporters of the Eirgrid Under-20 All-Ireland Football Championship and leaders in Ireland's pursuit of a cleaner energy future. Don't forget to follow, subscribe and review. Go to Mila Mahagav.